What's up, everybody? It's Johnny 2000, and have I got a treat for you. So a lot of people don't like musicals, whether it's Broadway, movie musicals, or anything in between. It's hard to justify watching a really good story break into song. But I admit there's definitely a negative connotation around it. If it wasn't for Joker or Mean Girls or Wonka hiding the fact that they're full musicals, I definitely think musicals are a powerful form of storytelling that most stories don't usually achieve, which brings me to my prime example of one of the better musicals on all of television. And not even just television, I mean, I genuinely think this musical is better than a lot of live shows I've seen, a lot of soundtracks I've heard, and it really touches me in a way that I thought it would be necessary to share with all of you guys. What's up, everybody? I'm Johnny 2000, and this is breaking down the Fairly OddParents Schools Out musical. So we start with a really fun overture, an opening sequence of these really cute 2D cartoons. We see a little bit of Fairly OddParents, and then we go into this giant theater. Ooh, Schools Out the musical. Okay. These two adult clowns are on a train, and they realize that they're going to perish, so they send off their clown child, kind of like Superman style, leave them a black and white picture, which it's 2005, you shouldn't have black and white yet. Then we get the pixies driving in a car alongside this traumatic event, coming home in disappointment after their last failed interaction with Timmy Turner. The train literally goes around, so they didn't have to get rid of their kids. The pixies talk about wishing they had a child to mold over 37 years, and they run into the clown baby. Timmy and the students of Dimsdale Elementary are watching and waiting for summer to start. No, kind of like High School Musical 2, when they're all counting for the clock to go off. And even Fairy World is getting excited for the summer, with Cosmo and Wanda starting at the racing line, which she should be with Timmy. We see there's a Pixie Inc. world, but it's actually like a business-centric city place. Everybody's counting down from everywhere, and the ball drops in Fairy World. It's finally summer, and that begins the very first song. So then we get a sequence of kids doing everything that they secretly wish they could do all the time. And then we get to see little instances of the pixies making things worse. I guess they're trying to exaggerate the kids' negligence to make it seem a lot worse than it is. These overdramatic parents acting like the world is over just because kids are having a summer. So we see the kids, then we see the fairies, and then we see the adults. The opening number always talks about the theme of the entire show, and that kids just being kids is such a controversial thing is really interesting, because this is definitely how growing up I imagined adults talked, that they were upset about kids all the time and that everything they did in life was in reflection of what kids were doing. The mayor doesn't want to talk to anybody in town, not even the parents, because he doesn't know how to explain kids. I don't know why the adults are going to the mayor about their own children. You guys should be mad at each other. Then we get introduced to Flappy Bob, this businessman. He has the name of a clown, but the persona of like a business guy. He claims to have the answer to all of their summertime problems with this place called Camp Learnatorium, which is a prison made out of pencils and smiles littered on it. And we get to meet the awesome camp counselors who each have their own piano, as Flappy Bob tries to sell them on the school. He basically is saying, like, all these kids are so disrespectful and you guys deserve to get rid of them for the summer. And then we get to see Timmy come in the second verse. I like that we get to see the kids' perspective on all these adult ideals. So it's essentially parents versus kids in a power struggle of being in control of this town. He even tells them that they could end up in jail because of how disrespectful their kids can be. So the idea that something so precious to kids like summertime and freedom is really the only time that kids have. An entire special about having the one thing that they enjoy about the year is being taken away, as their parents all drop them off at Camp Learnatorium for the summer. They're put into the drop-off box, kind of like a Blockbuster. When all the kids end up going to Camp Learnatorium, it's just this giant inflatable prison with kids going mentally insane, and these two erratic camp counselors running everything with a smile on their face. It's psychotic. The pixies show up acting as if they have nothing to do with this and saying they're enjoying Timmy's pain. The pixies put the idea into Timmy's head that adults ruin everything, kind of pitting them against the adults. So Timmy wishes that the kids will rule the world, and the power struggle continues. All the central locations in the country are turned into kid-centric, so Timmy's wish has all the kids become essentially the government. Pixies are obviously happy because they turn the kids against the adults. We see that Flappy Bob and his minions are watching as kids take over the world, and they start to panic with the Pixies coming in to see that everything is going according to their plan. It's kind of like the Pixies right now are staging a war between the adults and the kids. Then the Pixies get their own little rap song, which is extremely called for. The Pixies basically admit that they want to rule not only fairy world, but also the regular world. The song is just them freestyling. I always love a villain song, and these guys' villain song is actually pretty funny. It's not super catchy, but it doesn't need to be. It's revealed that Timmy works in the White House in his backyard treehouse, and now it's called Kid World. And Florida's still voting, which is very topical. There's such little scenes of dialogue in between the musical numbers, it's almost hard to follow the plot, especially since the Pixies are singing about their plan, the parents are singing about putting their kids in a learnatorium, then Timmy gets a little sweet ballad to himself. This is kind of like the second act opening number in theater, where the world entirely changes and the person is already happy that all of their dreams are coming true, which is Timmy having outlawed all these adults. Kind of like the Jimmy Neutron entire movie, you know? It's funny because Timmy is singing about a lot of practical things that are happening, but it sounds like he's dreaming of it. The Pixies try to continue the chaos by going to Fairy World, talking to Jorgen Von Strangle, and through song, remind them about a loophole in the rules, and it states that the Pixies are able to use magic. We see that Timmy has cameras up all across Dimsdale, which can't be legal, and the parents have homework? I don't know what that would be, though. And then we get a really fun solo from Wanda talking about how pretty the world is now that there's kids, like there's no wars and Cosmo has to clean the toilets. And the song ends with a really powerful moment of Timmy singing that this is the life. Jorgen Von Strangle interrupts to take away his fairies. So the Pixies are obviously excited because he convinced Jordan that Timmy isn't in need of his fairies anymore, therefore he gets to take the fairies. Jorgen then sings a song to Cosmo and Wanda about himself, and his song is so amazing. I feel like he's a parody of Arnold Schwarzenegger, but even Arnold Schwarzenegger couldn't have a song like this. This is so impressive. If this were like a full musical on Broadway, it seems like he's playing like a sort of prison guard to the fairies. It's so interesting to hear lyrics fit the dialect of a character, because it would take normal traditional songwriting and turn it into something a little more flavorful. I love it when there's no excuse but to stick to a tone when it comes to songs and character progression. Jorgen is basically saying he's pulling back all the fairies from Earth with a giant magnet, and they all get attached kind of like flies. The Pixies do the harmonies in Jorgen's song, and it's so funny. I guess the song would be called Pull Back the Fairies, I guess. Yeah, and it's cool because this song is a lot of progressing the plot, like having Jorgen sing about himself, but more so about what he's doing in this context to actually progress the story. Because now we find Cosmo and Wanda in prison. It's cool because the songs are so essential to the plot that they are everything that's important. Like, they could easily make music about the small moments in between the important events, like most shows do. Sometimes movies do, which kind of make them fail, which I don't know. So Flappy approaches Timmy in his presidential treehouse, threatening him because he stole his biggest dream. He is the antithesis of the adult that was really wronged by these kids. So then there's a scene with Timmy and Flappy where they're both kind of talking about what they find fun and appropriate for people of their age group, and Timmy realizes that Flappy actually has a side that really does yearn to have fun, despite the fact he's keeping this adult persona. It's cool that it's not Timmy's parents being the antagonist, but it's this other businessman that also resents children. He definitely makes the perfect antagonist for something like this. The Pixies reveal themselves to Flappy while they have this tense moment and say that they are actually his parents and they've raised him this entire time. Flappy is touched by this and starts to be loyal to them. They followed him his whole life, even when he had his first girlfriend, and as a clown would, he threw a pie in her face and sprayed her. The Pixies are basically like, yeah, we groomed you to be a normal person and repress all this childlike energy. I feel like being an adult is just seen as this business transaction, and it seems like the less he had fun in his life, the more successful he became, growing a resentment for his childlike side. The Pixies confront Timmy in front of Flappy and say that he destroyed his dreams, only further implementing Flappy's aggression towards kids. Suddenly, the pixies now can grant wishes because they have the power, trying to counter the fact that all the kids' godparents are gone. This is such a intense, it's definitely a commentary on capitalism, because it's like the government coming in between an adult and a kid and just what power will do to you, and it'll just make money and power seem like it's fun and joyful. And Timmy's trying to tell him that what he really found fun was groomed out of him, essentially. Timmy is basically telling Flappy that he doesn't have to listen to his godparents, even if they did raise him and they told him what was right. He's basically like, hey, you aren't only repressing yourself, you're repressing the other kids around you. You're the reason. Do you really want all these kids to be as business heavy as you? And it's almost like the adults are the center of everything that's going on. Flappy's only discrepance with this is that he thinks Timmy could be lying because he wants to be in charge of everything. The pixies keep reminding Flappy about what the kids have done to him, as if this innocence and happiness and fun is exactly what would ruin your life, and that kids are only going to ruin their lives. Flappy is so conflicted in what he's supposed to think of fun. It's like nature versus nurture. This entire song is just exemplifying. He says, I want to turn this world into a world that fits all my views. It's like the idea of falling into capitalism and benefit to your own self as opposed to people around you. Like, for example, kids who just want to grow up, have fun, and enjoy themselves. We started off the world with just being summer, then the world became all about kids, and then finally the last transformation is the entire world turns into the funitorium prison, essentially. Meanwhile, then we go back to fairy world, where actual prison is holding Cosmo and Wanda. They're separated, and Jorgen is threatening them to say that if she blames Cosmo, all of this will go away. But Wanda admits that she loves him and she will never blame him. And then we get a really sweet romantic song where Wanda is talking about how her and Cosmo came together, and it was a really cute story with this 90s style love sequence. And seeing Cosmo as a kid is just so funny. I used to cry to Floating With You. Just the fact that the vocal style isn't about sounding perfect, it's about being in character. And hearing Cosmo harmonize in his squeaky-like voice, intentionally beautiful. And I love the pacing of the editing. It's really hard to make a good musical work on film, and trust me, you've probably seen it in theaters yourself, but you need to keep up with a certain pacing, both editing-wise and visual style. And I love that we go from Cosmo's house to Cosmo's canoe, and then Cosmo's mom. We see so much told in such a short amount of time, and the music is just emphasizing all the visuals, and it's so beautiful. And then we see them in church with the beautiful mosaic with their silhouettes on it. Basically, they're singing about staying together, and it's just so romantic. And when they harmonize together, it's so cute. Getting ready to go to prison because they'd rather go to prison together than not be together, which is adorable. Then we find Jorgen smiling because Cosmo intentionally made a sappy song. The pixies finally take over fairy world with a giant wave of black and white, turning comedians into businessmen and taking the fun all out of fairy world. Cosmo steals the wand of another fairy and gives it to Wanda right before he throws her onto the rainbow bridge. Cosmo sacrifices himself one last time to throw Wanda onto the rainbow, and then we see Cosmo turn into a businessman, which to them is death. And I think that's the dark point of the soul, where fairy world's gone, the regular world's gone, Cosmo is a businessman, and Wanda is the last hope, essentially, for everyone. That's when we enter Act 3. They see one of the fairies attempt to get out of the black and white military base, and he gets shackled to the ground to show that everything is really not going well. This next song is essentially kind of Christmassy in its spirit. Flappy's happily singing about how all the fun places in town are being closed down early, and that everybody has to be safe all the time, while he's also having doubts as he's thinking about his original parents as clowns. I love the conflicted moment where he sings. We get to see all the kids going to school in their overprotective outfits, getting smiley faces planted on their forehead. I like how up-tempo this song is, as as they're singing about the militant lives they're all suffering. We see Cosmo singing about Fairy World and it's being turned into a business corporation. And then meanwhile on Earth, all the kids are going to school. And then we get to see the Pixies all in control of Fairy World. So Flappy controls Earth, the Pixies are controlling Fairy World. Flappy then overhears the Pixies talking in this giant monitor-like room, and they talk about their entire plan about how they groomed him for 37 years to not like fun, and they are so direct about it that Flappy hears the entire thing. Kids are a thing that Flappy was told are bad news, that fun is evil and fun is bad, and so now he believes this kid. I wish there was a song here about him believing in Timmy. That would be sweet. Wanda finally catches up to Timmy as he's going to school in the militant-like outfit, and she uses her last magic wand to get him out of there. The two make a break for it, as the entire world is restricted from doing anything fun. Timmy tries to wish for everything back to normal, but Wanda's wand doesn't work. Then Flappy Bob comes in to save the day in his full clown costume. Flappy shows Timmy that he found a loophole in his contract, which is cute because it's funny that there is a clown that is so playful but also a really good lawyer at the same time. I wish this came back in like a court episode. Like imagine Flappy Bob and Timmy doing a court case together. That needed to happen a while ago. Then we get a reprise of the same melody that Timmy sung to try to convince Flappy to see what fun is. And it's really sweet because it's like, of course, everything is being resolved in this reprise. Then they transition to kids just being kids again, showing that the adults now approve and find the joy in kids just having a good time and being themselves. And summer doesn't need to be taken away because kids deserve to have a little bit of time where they're free, a little bit of freedom before they go into the world of capitalism and have to become businessmen and are groomed into liking all these calculators and pixel worlds. Meanwhile, the Pixies using Fairy World as their sort of government-like system to reign over everyone. Now the adults and the kids decide to turn against the government, essentially. Like, it says they're against the Pixies, but really it feels like the American government if it's talking about capitalism. Then Timmy and Flappy both sing about how they thought that adults and kids ruined everything, which shows them all coming together. And I love the idea of these counter perspectives, like adults ruin everything, kids ruin everything, but then they're like, we underestimated each other. Flappy finally upstages his adopted parents and pull out the loophole in their contract. The loophole is that the world will be what Flappy Bob describes as fun, and since he has a new recognition for what fun is, the entire world goes back to normal. I feel like it just says that there's a lot of balance in the world between fun and adulthood, and that it's important to be a kid and respect authority, but it's also okay to be an adult and respect fun for children. The fact that Flappy grew up without his parents and was kind of raised with his pixie parents at a distance showed that he really missed out on having a childhood, and this yearning for more fun and to actually be a clown is more necessary for his arc than any of the other characters. In the end, we see that his parents return and they get to really meet him and they all reunite, and Timmy's parents are still bad people. I don't know what to say about them. In a shocking twist at the end, we learn that Gary and Betty made their own funitorium and the kids have to still go. Luckily, Cosmo and Wanda use their magic to actually make this funitorium be actually accommodating to the kids. And then we come back again to kids just being kid. I'm getting a little tired of this melody until I watch the fairies. This is exactly what a traditional musical should be. You have the opening number, the closing number, the common motifs and melodies that restate the theme throughout the entire production. I like that every song represents somebody's viewpoint and or progresses the plot to the end. This is almost like better than other musicals in general, and every character just has a place in the plot, although we did noticeably miss a lot of Vicky, a lot of Timmy's parents, but overall just such an unforgettable musical. I've watched this every year for at least 10 years and I'm still surprised at how emotional I get with it. It's just so underrated. So yeah, overall, a great musical. I definitely recommend everybody showing it to anybody you know, and it's so underrated. I wish it wasn't just hidden on Paramount Plus in season 4. But I'm curious if you guys remember this musical, and if you don't remember all of it and only some of it, I'm curious which parts stuck with you. For me, a lot of the character moments with Flappy Bob and Timmy's interactions with him really stuck with me, which just shows that it's such a grounded story with emotional depth. Something that I feel like Fairly OddParents kind of loses over the upcoming years after it. But if we had to look at this thing on its own, I definitely think it's an amazing piece of art. Thank you guys so much for watching, and to see more 2000s nostalgia, subscribe to my channel, and I guess I'll see you at the next video.